You know what they say, right? Couples who kill together probably go to jail together. Well, this was a disappointing opening, but they have not invented the concept of redoing things yet, so... Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Ray and Faye Copeland. Viewer discretion is advised. Before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that if you want to see a lot more crime stories from me in much shorter form, you can head on over to TikTok, where at the time of this video, I have about 2.6 million followers, and I have about 2,000 or so videos, so lots more to see over there, but you'll definitely be getting more from me here as well. And I will be posting compilation videos here soon from videos from my TikTok. Alright, let's get started with this killer grandparents couple. They're fun. Ray Copeland was born on December 30th, 1914. I don't have any photos of him from back when he was a child because I don't think light was invented yet for, like, pictures. I could be wrong, but I think I'm right. I'm probably wrong. Ray was born in Oklahoma. He was the first of, I believe, 3 children. The Copeland family did not stay put in one place. They kept bouncing around from state to state, city to city. They didn't stay in one location a very long time. The family would be hit pretty hard by the Great Depression, as obviously many families were affected by it. Because of this, Ray would drop out of school in the 4th grade, and he did this so that he could get small, odd jobs here and there to help, contribute to the family. Eventually, the Copeland family would settle down in a more permanent type deal, and they did so in Ozark Hills, Arkansas. Yeehaw, no. By his late teens, and going into his early 20s, Ray would start to commit like little tiny petty crimes here and there, mostly which consisted of stealing livestock. He stole cattle, horses, that sort of thing. And then he got into forging government checks. And he did this for a while before the authorities caught on and arrested him. This would get him his first prison stint, which lasted roughly a year. When he got out in 1940, he started to see a new doctor. And working at his doctor's office was a young woman that caught his eye. And her name was Faye Della Wilson. Faye was born on August 4th, 1921. She was raised in a very large family. She was one of 7 kids, and they lived in the Harrison, Arkansas area, and they were also very poor. A lot of that had to do with the Great Depression. The family lived in like this super dilapidated, just sort of dirty cabin that was kind of falling apart, but her parents still worked very hard to make ends meet in order to support the family. So by 1940, Faye was about 19 years old or so, and she got a job at a doctor's office where she would eventually meet a patient by the name of Ray Copeland. They started dating in 1940, and then 6 months later, they were happily married. Yay! Marriage! Woohoo! This will be a great marriage, I'm sure. A year after that, they wasted no time. They had their first child. And they named him Everett. And then, 2 years later, they popped out another one. His name was Billy Ray. I love that name. And then, by about 1944, the family picked up and moved out of state. They actually would move to Fresno County, California. It was there that they had their first and only daughter. Her name was Betty Lou. These are such, like, 1940s names. Another 2 years goes by. They have another child. His name is Alvia. And then another 2 years later, another child. His name was William Wayne. Uh-oh, that's not a good sign when your middle name is Wayne. Around the time of William's birth, Ray was accused of stealing livestock, cattle, that sort of thing. He felt that that severely damaged his reputation. No shit, Ray. So he picked the family up and they moved back to Arkansas. And Ray was back to his old tricks. In 1950, he was arrested for what? Stealing cattle. Again. He then got out of jail shortly after that, and then by 1953, the family started to do exactly what Ray's family did when he was a kid. They now are moving around from city to city, county to county, state to state. They keep bouncing around, moving all over the place. During all of this, Ray is arrested between 5 and 7 times or so for, again, petty crimes. And this is when he got into more trouble for forging checks, something that would become a pattern for Ray. Fast forward to 1966. They move once again. This time they relocate to Mooresville, Missouri. I know I say it both ways, and sometimes it drives you guys nuts. When they moved there, they bought themselves a quaint little 40-acre plot of land which had a nice little farm on it. Uh-oh, this might involve more cattle. It wouldn't take long for other farmers in the area to quickly find distaste for Ray. They didn't trust him, and they just really disliked him. Most of the people who lived in that area thought or assumed that Ray was beating his wife, Faye, and also the children. At the time of those accusations, Faye and the kids would come out saying, no, none of that's true. He doesn't lay a hand on us. Even though later down the road, they're pretty sure that he actually was abusing his family. Ray just sort of became this bitter, old, cranky, mean guy. And then Ray started a scheme, a plot, if you will, to get money. So what Ray would do is he would go to cattle auctions, he would purchase cattle with fake or forged checks, and then he would very quickly, almost immediately, go and sell that cattle elsewhere for cash. And then the check he gave to the cattle auction would eventually be they would realize there's no money here. We got scammed. He did this a few times and he earned, quite a bit of money doing it. But eventually all of the cattle auctions, the farmers all nearby realized what he was doing and they caught on. So he would actually be banned by the state from selling or purchasing any livestock. But Ray, he still wanted to do it. He needed to do this. So he came up with a new scheme. So what did he do? Okay, he hires vagrants, passerbys, people who are, just constantly hitchhiking, people who don't have a lot of familial connections, not a lot of friends, they're loners. And what he would do is he would set up bank accounts in their names. They would work on the farm, and he would then have them go to the cattle auctions, purchase the livestock with, again, forged checks. And then he would repeat the process, but he wasn't involved in it, at least not on face value. But eventually, they would catch on, and they would realize what Ray was doing. And he went back to jail. This man was in and out of jail and prison just constantly throughout his life, and he never seemed to be able to give up the scam. He just needed to do it. He was obsessed with getting money. Now he's out of prison, and surely he's done now, right? He can't keep doing this. Nope. He will. So he comes up with a new scheme, and this time it turns deadly. So now what he would do is he would once again hire vagrants, people like that, people who may not be missed if they go missing. Ray would have that person create a bank account in their name, and then he would have them go and do the cattle thing with the forged check, and there would be at this point no connection directly to Ray anymore. And the reason why is because he got rid of the witnesses. So what he would do is, after they did the successful scam, the vagrant that he hired would come back to the farm under the premise of working on the farm, but then Ray would lure them to the barn, and then, armed with a .22 caliber Marlin bolt-action rifle, he would shoot them in the back of the head, execution style. And then he would just bury them in a shallow grave somewhere on the property. So, you may be wondering, well, how is Faye involved in this? You said killer couple in the beginning. Well, Faye's involvement is highly debated. Faye seemed to be aware that these murders were taking place. Eventually, when police got involved in this, they would find a document in Faye's handwriting. They confirmed it was her handwriting, with a list of names of all of these, nobodies, if you will, these vagrants that they had hired. And next to at least 5 of those names was a big old red X. Those 5 people we'll talk about in just a minute. In 1989, a 57-year-old man by the name of Jack Mccormick was essentially was one of the vagrants that Ray Copeland managed to weasel onto his farm. Jack was much older than the previous men that were hired, and he seemed to be a little more wiser, a little more aware of kind of what was going on. He had his own life experiences. He started to catch on to this scheme with checks, right? And one day, he's in the barn, and Ray Copeland is also in there. And then Jack hears the sound of a click, essentially, and he knows it's the sound of a gun. Ray had pointed his rifle at the back of Jack's head, and he pulled the trigger. But the gun, thankfully, didn't fire. Something went wrong. So Jack is like, holy shit, and then he just bolts. He runs as fast as he can out of there. And to my knowledge, Ray was not able to fire off any shots at him. So Jack runs to the police station, and he tells them what just happened. Police are like, oh, for God's sakes, Ray Copeland, yes, we're very aware of this man. So because of Ray's former constantly in prison experiences, the police were able to actually get a warrant. And this was to search the Copeland farm. The Copelands also had another property, which police would get a warrant to search as well. So over on the main farm, when police were doing their search, they came across that little list that Faye had made with red, X's. They also uncovered something very disturbing, in my opinion. They found a sheet that was clearly sewn together, but this wasn't your typical sheet or blanket. This was a blanket made of men's clothing, shirts and whatnot. Faye had sewn together a blanket of the deceased people's clothing. That's another reason why they felt that Faye was involved in some way in this whole thing. On the main property, police are kind of looking around, and they notice kind of a shallow grave. And there's a skull popping out of the ground. There is a human skull. They dig, they find human remains. And then they start digging around the property. They find 2 more bodies on this property. On the main property, they have 3 bodies, and some of them had a bullet still lodged in their head, and it was a .22 caliber bullet. On their second property, a smaller property, they found 2 more bodies. One of them was buried in a grave. One of them was just thrown down a well, and that's how they were disposed. Eventually, police would kind of go through the list, and it took some time, but they were able to identify 5 men. 21-year-old Paul Jason Cowart, they would surmise that he was killed sometime in October of 1986. 27-year-old John Freeman, they believe he was killed sometime around November of 1986. And then 27-year-old Jimmy Dale Harvey, they believe he was killed sometime around October of 1988. And then Wayne Warner, whose age I could not find, they believe he was killed sometime around December of 1988. And then the body of the man they found in the well was 27-year-old Dennis Murphy. They believe he was killed sometime around May of 1989. And these dates are just based on the list that Faye had and just sort of doing their investigating to realize like when people had last seen these guys. But again, they were all vagrants, and so they didn't really have a whole lot of connection to other people. On the property, the main one, they then found Ray's .22 caliber rifle, which they would eventually learn that through ballistic testing that was the gun used to shoot all of the men by matching it up with the bullets that were found inside each of those guys. So both Ray and Faye Copeland were arrested, and they were charged with all 5 counts of murder. Faye was adamant that she had no involvement in this whatsoever. She told police that she was a battered wife, and this is not in any way disputed by anyone. It is more than likely that, yes, she was definitely beaten by Ray. The kids were definitely beaten by Ray. And so there's no denying that aspect of her life. Police offered her a pretty good deal. They said, if you testify against your husband and you plead guilty to conspiracy, you won't even serve a full year in prison. But if you go to trial on your own for these charges, you, Faye, are facing the death penalty. She denied that deal because, again, she swore she had no involvement. So Faye went on trial sometime around 1990-1991 when she was 69 years old. She was found guilty of all 5 murders, and she was sentenced to death by lethal injection. Ray went on trial in 1991 at the age of 76. He was found guilty of all 5 counts of murder, and he too was sentenced to death by lethal injection. They became the oldest couple to ever be sentenced to death. Now, by the way, Ray tried to insinuate that he did all of this in madness, and he tried to plead insanity, but no one bought it. It didn't work. You know, the psychiatrists were like, no, he was totally sane. When that failed, he then said, can I take a plea deal or something? And then they're like, no. Even though both people were sentenced to death, neither one of them would be executed. Just a couple of years later, in 1993, at the age of about 78, Ray Copeland died in prison from just natural causes. Now, Faye would eventually win an appeal, and in my opinion, she won this appeal rightfully so. This was because there was not any sufficient evidence to show that Faye had any involvement in the physical acts of murder. Was she aware of the situation? Probably. Was she an accessory after the fact? More than likely. There's enough proof to show that. But there was no proof to show that she actually killed anyone. So because of that, her death sentence was overturned. and then she was resentenced to life in prison. Now she was getting up there in years, and there were women's rights groups out there protesting that they just should release her because she served her time for the crimes she may have committed, but she wasn't involved in killing anyone, so please release her. This didn't work. In 2002, Faye would end up having a pretty severe stroke. And at that point, she was then paroled and sent to a nursing home where in 2003, at the age of 82, she would die. So the Copeland couple was convicted of 5 murders. However, the list that Faye had, there were other names on it. They did not necessarily have that red X next to their names, but there is a possibility that Ray Copeland may have killed an additional 7 men. But it's never been established or confirmed. So I'm kind of curious what you guys think. Obviously, Ray Copeland got what he should have gotten. What do you think about Faye's punishment? Do you think she deserved life in prison after her death sentence was overturned? Personally, I think when they overturned her death sentence, I kind of think they should have just paroled her at that point. 1, given her age. 2, given the fact that there was no proof that she physically killed anyone. And she did serve quite a bit of time. So, I don't know. She was very likely involved, though, in the after fact. So, I don't know. But that is it for today's tale. I hope you all found it interesting. Like I always say, please make sure you go over to TikTok. Making a True Crimerer is my name. It'll be in the description below. Please give me a follow, and I have a whole lot more stories over there. And then, if you would like a case to be covered by me, whether it's on here on YouTube or in TikTok, by the way I pick the cases is super random. I just pick a name at random, to be fair. And at that point is when I determine if it's a YouTube video or a TikTok video. If there's a lot of information, I can make a YouTube video out of it. If there's very minimal info, it'll probably be on TikTok. But either way, eventually the cases you recommend will get covered, but I have like 4,200 names at the time of this video, so it's just going to be a while, so you do have to be patient. In my link tree, which is in the description below, you will find the link to go to my case list. Please go there, scroll through it. It is in alphabetical order. Some cases are designated in locations like I have a serial killer area, I have a mass killing area, a theme park deaths, worst deaths imaginable area. So please scroll through the list. If you're on the computer, just hit Control F to find the name. I don't know how you search for it on the phone. Sorry. But if you don't see the name, then email me at mikey@truecrimerer.com. Also in the description below, and then I can add that case to my list. And then lastly, if you want to support me, you can always check out our merch. We sell shirts like The Owl Did It. We also sell just like logo shirts. We have wine glasses, we have mugs, and he will ship worldwide. Adam, who makes my merch, who is logically.me on TikTok. He makes my merch. He designs everything. By the way, the background in here, hopefully it's working, but it's really cool. He designed this with the slowly moving images. So I hope you guys think it's cool. I love it. He designs my intro. He's amazing. So, yeah. So that's how you can support me. I think he's actually going to be moving from Etsy to a different site soon. So and when that happens, I'll let you guys know. But that is it for today, folks. Yeah, we will see you for the next case. And until then, ta-ta for now. True crime Aroonies. Thank you.